Happy Sunday. It's Mike here. So, new week coming up. See if we survive it. Um, we should. Few stray thoughts that seem to be interrelated now that I think about it. First was, I was watching a video last night, and I watch these near-death experience videos, and somebody actually said, oh yeah, there's going to be nuclear war, says Jesus. We'll go from 10 billion people to 1 billion people. Poof. Hardly an extinction level event, but pretty much. The guy's story had, it told him when people in his family would die, and what would happen if he didn't come back. Because that's what near-death experience videos tell you. The message many people have is, okay, do you want to come back or not? It's up to you. And by the way, this is what happens either way. And he came back, and his life's been good, even though he's had tragedy. But yeah, the whole nuclear war thing is interesting. So there's that. Which leads us to peak heads at and his little embarrassment. And then Trump's embarrassment. It's amazing. I don't think they're the ones who are gonna, put us in a nuclear war. They might. I mean, Russia is at its last legs, and these guys are Russophiles. So, but I don't think that's gonna. I don't think they're gonna cooperate with the destruction of the country. And I don't think the Russian missiles will work. There'll be a different nuclear war. And it won't be about Ukraine. God, I hope not. That would be a silly way to destroy the world. There's a lot that has to happen before we nuke ourselves. First, we have to have a culture that would be worth rebuilding. Right now, we don't. We could. But I think we need to get better before we destroy it all. And then there's the and then Israel's like, maybe we're gonna get peace, maybe not. I mean, is Netanyahu the Antichrist? Could be. Speaking of nuclear war, so he's the most likely one to start lobbing weapons. But yeah, what he's doing in Gaza is shameful. Yeah, there's one place they haven't talked about people going, and that's letting the Gazans go back to their part of Israel where they were from, as Israeli citizens. Apparently there's some right wingers there that have the same view of the Palestinians that certain Palestinians have of Israel. Kill them all. It's hard to get peace when those people are in power in both sides. Yeah, the people in charge of the people backing Netanyahu are crazy asses who are religious fanatics who have kids. So having them just control the state of Israel is problematic for peace. They're not a majority, but they're enough of a minority that they keep putting Netanyahu in. So they're reaping what they sow, or they're going to. Will they be the cause of the conflagration? I doubt it. Well, it's a crime. I don't think one genocide is going to lead to another. Well, one genocide led to this genocide, so yeah. But hopefully, other Jews like me are going to say, "Hold on," and the Jews haven't returned. People, as I've said before, the prophecy somehow has Israel becoming Christianized. It's like, no, that's not the prophecy. There's nothing in the Bible that says, and finally my people will accept Christ. It's not even it's not even, it's it's, they'd be eliminated. Jesus said, in 70 AD, and of course people were writing with hindsight, who wrote the scriptures. 70 AD was the time that Jesus was saying, Israel was going to be destroyed, and Israel was destroyed. And luckily, St. Paul spread Christianity, or else it would have been destroyed too, rather than it flourishing without the Ebionites. So, I mean, that's the thing. If you've got faith in God, you don't have to worry about whether he's coming again on a cloud of glory. Because if you have real faith, you're going to go in a cloud of glory to God, not the other way around. That's what the near-death experiences show. That this apocalyptic vision is, granted, it's going to be an apocalypse if 9 billion people die, but, and, we aren't to 10 billion yet. The Chinese are lying about how many billion people they have. They don't even have a billion, as India does, but we ain't nowhere near 10, despite what people will say. Because the Chinese double, triple count. So yeah, their own apocalypse. Just, they really had COVID bad. You thought it was bad here. China was like, it was worse. So yeah, it's because they imagine something as screwed up as a communist party trying to manage it. It was awful. So, because they did all the wrong things at all the wrong times. Here, I mean, Trump, let things happen and took the credit, which he should do more of. Right now, he's just trashing the place, and the judges are saving our asses. And they'll do this too, and, Hank Seth will be gone eventually, hopefully, that he doesn't put us into a nuclear war at first. I think he's just an irritant and a fool. He's not that malevolent. The generals are just like, oh, no, yeah, we've seen sec deaths before. They come and go. And they're not going to let him. Now the generals at least know, we're not going to follow these guys into a war. Yeah. It won't be an active mutiny, but it's going to be okay, yeah. It's going to be an active bureaucracy. I don't think that there was a bunch of people there's no cadre of people who are thinking, yeah, Donald, MAGA, MAGA, MAGA. No. I remember a lot of these guys were coming up when I was coming up in the Defense Department. Hell, some of them, most of them hadn't even been in when I was a civil servant in the Pentagon. Or they were just like, in the academy, or they probably hadn't even gotten to the academy yet. It takes 30 years to become a general officer, and I left the government 40 years ago. So you can do the math. These are post. Yeah. So yeah, I'm older than the brass. That's scary, isn't it? Which gets us to clocks. That last thing. I was going to lead with the clocks, but I guess I'll summarize with the clocks. What clock are we talking about? The clock of humanity. I was reading something today that talked about the asteroid belt and how it is and has been deteriorating. I guess 20% of the asteroids get kicked into the solar system, the lower solar system, and the rest are pulverized into dust. They tend to collide, and Jupiter's gravity has a piece of it. It's a high grav environment. It's popping things. I wonder if it started with people think it started with the belt. Maybe it started with maybe Sirius is the core to the planet that was a core to the planet which went unstable and popped. the theoretical planet Lucifer. So, although that's Pluto, Hades, but it's been demoted to dwarf. It's smaller than the moon. Sirius is small. Yes. The moon's actually a dwarf planet. So Ceres is round, so is Pluto, so is Pluto's moon. It's a fun concept, if you like low gravity. But, a low gravity space station's a nice place for astronauts to go and feel some gravity. Although I still think we should work out orbitals, on artificial gravity space stations first, rather than putting all our money in going to Mars and the moon. Because frankly, the better way to go to the moon, or not the moon, but to Mars, is to put a high population gravity spaceship in Martian orbit with people. So that makes more sense than trying to put people on Mars. If you can create an environmental conditions above Mars for people to have, gravity and families and all that, and just let them. If people want to study Mars, great, do it at Mars. Don't bother the rest of us. So there was also something there about humans, that Mars will kill us all, which somebody's watching too much Doctor Who. So, but that gives us to the time clock again. In the same article, it says, will the asteroid belt ever fully evaporate? It's like, no, the Earth will grow cold or explode or whatever before that happens. So, okay, that's 12 o'clock for Earth, and until the great attractor takes us all, it's gonna. There's a whole lot of universe left. The human beings dying won't have any impact on the end of the entire cosmos. Our perception of it will, except the near-death experiences say that our perception is eternal. We come back and come back and come back and come back and come back. So we've been around before the foreman. We'll be around after we come back as men and women. So yeah, we existed a long time before, and we'll exist a long time after. But the clock, again, we meet God in the air when we die. So your personal clock is your personal clock. That's nothing to do with the human race. But the math was the important part. Is that we're at noon. These clocks that say we're at 12 o'clock. No, you've got your time scale wrong. It shouldn't stop. Now is not the end. Even if 9 billion people die in a nuclear war, it's still not the end of life on Earth. Maybe extinction of X don't count as the end. The Earth as a rock will be around another 5 billion years, 4 billion years. If you look at the history of the planet, not the history of, you're looking at the history of the planet, then you've got to factor in the real end. We're at noon. We're not at 11:59. And we should be around as a species for the rest of it. So, good news. Ask the rats. We'll be here after we leave. Have a good week.